Call the Infrastructure and Property Committee meeting to order. Call the roll. Mr. Carmichael is absent this evening. Mr. Bissonette is here. Mr. Godin.
Here.
Our mayor is filling in this evening. Mr. Stewart.
Here.
Thank you. First item on the agenda is a request for benches and a bathroom facility on the Miles Lane trails.
This is on here because this request has been made on more than one occasion, and we haven't moved forward or done any planning in this regard. And the question, I guess, for the committee is, what do we want to do in terms of planning for this? There's been suggestions, everything from porta potties to some sort of a more permanent structure midway on the trails.
When you say request, how many are we talking? We talking single digits? We talking hundreds? We talking?
Oh, well, not hundreds. We probably 8 or 10 over the last, as the season starts again. When the season ended, not much over the winter, but certainly spring, summer, we get requests from people who indicate that it would be a real convenience for especially the older people who walk those trails if there was an occasional bench, and if there were
The bathroom facilities at the concession stand are not an option.
I don't think those are open all the time.
Well, I'm saying, I mean, is that an option? Because there are very nice facilities there that, you know, instead of
that's a possibility. Well, my concern about putting porta potties out in the middle of is that they end up
they're going to be
being
in the middle.
Used for everything but.
the target for inappropriate behavior. I see our police chief nodding his head in the back row that is a.
And there's a porta potty already.
There is.
Around at the practice fields at the middle school, which is right in the middle of it. Right?
There is.
One walk in through there, but there's one right there if they need it.
And I'll ask the chief. I mean, we open up those bathrooms till 9 o'clock at night. How much extra is that going to add?
We're up through there enough anyway, because there's a lot of activity, so it wouldn't add too much to us. I mean, someone's just going to have to walk them up, obviously, after 9, but wouldn't be that bad at all.
And I'm asking because is that the RSU's or is that ours? The concession stand at the high school field.
Who owns that concession in the town? Or?
The town owns the field, so I imagine the town owns the building too.
That was a town project, if I remember right.
It was.
Yep. Yep.
That would be a good solution.
I mean, that's by all means the cheapest solution. If that's been one of the things, I agree with Sean that there is a porta potty up there, but this is a nicer facility, obviously, that we don't have to go build.
Yep.
And if we've got it up there, and we only use it for Friday nights for 5 nights out of the year.
Right.
I mean, it is kind of foolish not to put it to use, and if there's something that I don't think it's going to be a burden to.
Should we check them?
And if it turns into a burden, we deal with it as it comes, right?
Okay, and as far as we're in the process of having benches made for the downtown. That was a project that Main Street Bucksport was working with the Senior Resource Committee and Rich on benches, and that's moving forward. The high school shop students are building benches for that project. Do we want to consider adding a few out through there for?
I think it would be great, you know, to have that project expanded, but some of the, I guess the problem I see is there's only about 5 weeks left of school, or 4 weeks, roughly. That would be something that happens next year, which really doesn't help. You know, we're getting into the main trail walking season now.
What if we took a walk on the trails to see how many might be appropriate and where they might be located, and then come back to the committee with a plan to either buy a few or look into it for the next season?
That's great.
Is everyone all right with that? And I will talk to the RSU and others about use of the concession stand restrooms for people,
Are you talking about porta potties?
yes.
They've gotta be where a truck can access them to clean and relocate. You can't just
No, the
go-
concession area bathrooms are,
They're permanent.
they're permanent ones, the ones up by the high school field, or what we're talking about there.
Doesn't that trail walk right by them?
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
also
we're
have-
talking about
You also have
benches.
the one at the ice rink as well. Nick and I had talked about this earlier today, that we could open that one and you can have the lobby shut off so that they can't get to where the equipment's stored. So that's another bathroom that we have up there. And we have a porta potty up at the middle school right now as well. And July 1st, there's gonna be 2 porta potties brought to Miles Lane between the 2 soccer fields as well. These are already pre-planned and
Is this the first time they've been there?
no, so I worked in collaboration with the RSU and we came up with a plan for porta potties. We worked a deal. We have a lot of them now, so we got a discount, and we strategically placed them. The new one this year is put at Silver Lake. We've never had one there before. We've got one there now for the people who use the recreation area. Typically, the school leaves the porta potties at the school premises till the end of June. And I've taken the waterfront money and I'm going to keep them there for the people who are using the trails, and I'll cover it for July and August. Instead of the people coming, taking them in July, bringing them back at the end of August, we'll just leave them there for the people who are going to walk. And that was pre-planned and already going to happen.
But is this the first year that's being done?
Yes, I believe so, at those locations. The high school ones go in July because the varsity teams play games. But it's going to be the first time we'll keep them by the trail areas.
That's perfect.
Okay.
So it looks like there's plenty of options available for,
And we'll talk about picnic tables, I mean benches, after we've had a chance to figure out where they might go.
Good. Anything else on item 3? Thank you. Item 4 is a request for purchase of property on the Racecourse Road.
Christopher Grindle Senior had come in to ask about about whether the town would be interested in selling a couple of acres of land. What happens is, I have a map here that shows the town owns the 78 acres that, it's called Buck Estates, but it's goes off from where the school is, but there's an area behind, that's it. Thank you. If you see all those lots, there's that square in the middle that doesn't have a number on it. That's because that is also part of
that one
lot
right there?
63.
That one right there where it's marker?
Yep.
The one right, lot 74 is Mr. Grindle Senior right there.
Yep.
The lot behind it, that one right there, is part of lot 63, which is the 78.9 acres that the town owns there. And he had asked if the town was interested in selling a couple acres. He wishes to build a house for his son. There's some issues being that there's no frontage. It would
Say, how would you
require,
get to it?
yeah. Perhaps you could answer that, Jeff. How would someone access that?
Well, we do have a provision in our ordinance to allow for rear lots that don't meet the minimum street frontage. They just have a narrow strip of land to get to the larger portion. So I don't know what is he thinking about for access.
I think across lot 74.
Yeah. So
How do they access lot 74?
well,
That Racecourse Road comes in front of it. That's town-owned property there, too. Right where his arrow
so
is.
this is actually, I think it's their front lawn, or part of it's their front lawn.
Oh,
But
that's
that's,
good.
but it's,
But it's
but
town
it is, the town owns that
Right.
that
Yeah.
piece, yeah.
Where's
Anyway,
the
so that
Racecourse
was the
Road end?
request that has come, and in looking at it, it's not an area that is likely to be used for a trail or whatever, because it's already behind and in the middle of other property.
The only concern, obviously, is lot 79, 80, 81. What's,
59.
you know, if we open this up as town property for people to purchase, it's, I think you always have to put out a process and not just first come,
Certainly
first
what this
served.
council's done before.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, the town hadn't discussed before the sale of any of this land. So,
So, that little jagged piece about 61, that coming through, that's town property all the way through there, and
Yes.
back
yes.
south or whatever towards,
The-
lot 63 is basically town
Toward
property.
the trails, right, is the church lot there.
There's-
Yeah.
Yeah, 69 is the church lot. The 69 is the school.
Yep, 62
is the
lot.
church.
Yeah.
Yeah, but see how this goes in around all
Yeah.
these, that's,
Yeah.
that's the way that it's awkward.
So just so that I'm clear, 60, what's notated as 63 right there, that's all, that odd
That's
shaped
right.
puzzle piece, that's all town property?
That's correct.
That's that 78 acres?
Yes.
Is there access to 62, 63, 60, 61?
Yeah, the road runs down through.
Right.
It does?
Yep.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
the corner on Race Course.
Okay.
Which comes all the way down through the church, right?
62,
Mhm.
right, yep. And then the trails, the trails we were
The
just talking
trails are
about.
all in
That's right.
63, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's correct.
But I think the mayor's concern at this point is correct, right? If we offer a portion of that property up for sale that Mr. Grindle is interested in, the other abutting landowners also have a chance to
Yep.
bid on that property. Okay.
Who owns 79 and 80?
80 would
Those
be.
are the abutting, right?
Yeah, 80 would be Brent Beers. 79, I don't remember.
It's the house before the cable TV place.
Yes, yep.
I think that's a Tolger maybe.
Yes, thank you. Yep, yep.
And I don't know who 59 is.
59? I think in that Mark,
That's Mark Smith.
Yep.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, because
Yep, he's access via.
Well, I guess the question then is, does Mr. Grindle want to buy that entire?
If we're gonna do it, we might as well square it off.
Right. My only question is, how many of these abutting landowners are we actually concerned with here? If Mr. Grindle wants to just go straight back to a particular point, is it just 77, which is the, really 79? Or does he want to go back all the way to abut it against?
He
80?
mentioned 2 acres. He did not mention, and there's a lot more than 2 acres in there, I'm not sure.
Can we just send out a notice to those abutters and
Yeah.
say, this is in process, notify us if you're interested? And then,
Well,
I guess the question is, though, are we looking at selling off town property?
that's the reason was it, that's the question.
I mean,
Is this something that you're interested in? Is this, that particular piece of property, something that has a purpose?
I don't see,
I don't see it ever having a purpose.
Yeah.
I mean, not inside 59 and 61 there.
What would be cool, I think, is if we got a Google Earth look at it to actually see what it looks like there with property lines on it, just to kind of see
Yep.
where you're at.
You have one? You guys
Give
Google
me
We
it.
can
But
look
I think,
at
I
this
think there's
further.
something superimposed over it with map lines,
Sure.
and just
Okay.
sort of where then you can see where the trails are and kind of where, if there is a purpose that the town would ever use any of this land, or if it's something, you know,
Okay.
Okay,
Is it right here?
I don't know.
we'll add it with more, well,
Oh, we gotta come this way now, yeah. Find the church, and then go back,
down.
go back 3.
Church is down here, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you probably have to,
That's church.
79, 80, 59, 61.
This is the land back here, right?
They're all,
You'd have to ask all 4 of them.
Yeah, because this one is,
Right. 50-something.
well, it's 2, actually.
Oh, yeah, the little one that's
Yep, the
80,
big one.
or 60 rather than
Yep.
61.
And then
Yeah.
that's the one.
So we want to bring that to the next
So it's open.
meeting? Okay.
I think it's just, I think just get a little more information, and kind of
Yep.
see what the process would be.
Sure.
I didn't realize it was all open.
Anything else on that?
Yeah, right here.
Yeah.
It's one of our-
Let's see, item 5 is a request for purchase of property between lot 50 and lot 43 on Forest Hills.
and we have, you have a number of letters in your packet. in regard to a request by the Vayus for what is their driveway is on a town-owned easement that was once going to be a street. Jeff can probably better explain what this is, but they've had it paved, they've had it extended, that they're asking that it be deeded as their, to them as, to continue to be used as their driveway, so that it's not the potential for through street. Recognizing that this would require an amendment to the subdivision plan, that's what you had indicated, Jeff, an amendment to the subdivision plan, because the subdivision plan shows that as a paper street that goes all the way through to Woodland Heights, and our code officer also has, on an issue related to this, information from the Greers, who were talking about this same access way at the last thing. So Jeff, if you
So
could.
Linda Greer called me this afternoon to let me know she couldn't make the meeting tonight, but she also said that she's been in touch with CMP, and according to her, they're agreeable to giving her an easement over their transmission line, which is right here. And I'll show you on a Google Earth image. She's envisioning that her driveway would start off the turnaround here at the top of Forest Hill, and probably head across the right-of-way up into her property, something like that.
That's perfect.
I was under the impression that this was actually an easement granted to CMP, but according to our assessor, he believes actually they own that strip of land, which would, if that's true, it would complicate the conveyance to Bayou, because this would be a 50-foot strip of land not owned by the town that would need to be conveyed, or an easement given to them by CMP.
Well, wouldn't that have come up when the original subdivision?
Yeah, that's why I'm not sure if the assessor is accurate there in calling this a property owned by CMP.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So, if it's not owned by CMP, who's it owned by? Is it
Well,
owned by us?
He believes, the assessor believes
The
that the
town?
ownership starts somewhere, and he thinks it's in the area of Forest Hill. And I'm guessing because CMP is talking to the Greers about an easement here, that they assume they own that part of the strip of land. That's something that would have to be settled, I think, at some point, to determine exactly who owns what.
Because at some point, permission was granted for the Vayus to extend that road across and pave it and create the driveway system that they have now.
Yeah. So back when that was done, the Public Works Director issued an entrance permit to the Vayus to build their driveway, and at that time, I believe the assumption was the land was owned by the Buck Estates developer.
So then, if that's the case, then we're certainly within our purview to, in that hypothetical situation, consider this and move forward or not, whatever we decide to do. But that would really hinge on that, wouldn't it?
Who owns it?
Who owns the property?
Ownership,
Because
yeah.
we could, yeah. I don't mean to state the obvious here, but I just want to make sure that it's said so that.
Because otherwise the Bayous should talk to
Right.
CMP.
Yeah. But if we move forward this evening,
I mean,
So what are they looking to buy?
See where the driveway goes?
This, I've colored here the strip of land that they're asking to purchase. Starts at the top of Forest Hill, crosses over the CMP land or easement,
Yeah.
and goes up to line up with the northerly boundary line of their lot. This yellow shaded area here is what's left over that's not developed. Woodland Heights ends right about here with a turnaround.
So, does the town maintain that blue piece now?
No, it's a
So it's
private
their
driveway.
driveway.
Yes,
it is.
Right?
Yep.
yes. but it's their driveway located on a paper street that was never completed all the way to where the end of the yellow is.
In all actuality, the town could extend Forest Hills right through to Woodland Heights if the town, the town felt they could or should, or I'm not saying they're gonna, but they could do that.
Back within the time I've been here, which is only 4 years, we talked about that at one point early on, that was not a preferred outcome because of the amount of traffic, etc., that would be added into the Woodland Heights area. Rich, I think you were part of that discussion when we had that. Anyone, you remember, we talked about, because there was another,
There's a person on Spruce Street that wanted to purchase the land with 2 driveways, that's a paper street there as well. And then the fear was that it would open up Woodland Heights and Forest Hill. I live on Woodland Heights.
Just so I understand, paper street, what does that mean?
It's in the original plans from when the roads were built.
Okay.
So if sort of like this right here is a paper street, it's not an actual road, but the subdivision plans call for this at some time to be a road in the original plans.
As an eventuality.
So
But it's been determined that it's not to be.
from what I bought my house in '03, and what I was told when I bought the house was that someone on the lower half on Forest Hill, it came to the council and was voted that that road would not be connected. And there were boulders down that end as well that separate that so that you can't come up. And there's a driveway that, it's a very heavily used walking area. And the kids use that for Halloween, and the police shut down the bottom of Forest Hill as well. So there's a lot of paper streets in this town, by the way, that I'm learning a lot of. But here's one here, and then there should be another one right over here that the council took up last year and decided not to allow the 2 property owners to purchase. They wanted to do it so that another street wouldn't come in on their property, but we decided to keep it. I don't know why.
in this case, the town has permitted these people to extend and create a paved driveway to
Oh, you
their
give them an easement.
residents without giving them any real rights to the property. And so what they're asking is that what was done in terms of allowing this construction be memorialized in the ownership of it, so that their driveway remains their driveway without the idea that it may be a road in some future time. And the values are here if anyone has questions or if they wish to say anything on this topic also.
Go ahead.
How long's the house been there?
Over 20 years.
So in 20 years, I mean, we haven't. And the only thing that really brought this up was the Greers wanting to come off of it.
That's when we found out it's when the family found out that
It really wasn't the families?
it's not a family.
Okay.
And I think when you look at this, I have family that live on Woodland Heights, and my parents used to live on Woodland Heights. I've lived here a while. I've never talked to anybody that has ever had any interest in extending Forest Hills so that Woodland Heights connects to it. I've heard from multiple people that live on either of those streets and don't, that see that that is a terrible idea. But this decision will put this to bed, one way or another, good or bad, right? If we sell this piece of property to the Bayous, this, one way or another, that are ever doing that is put to bed. So it is, in my mind at least, something that in fact does need to be considered. But to me, what's also just as important is that the Bayous have maintained this property for the better part of 20 years, have paved the driveway, and it's their access to their property at this point.
permitted by the town.
Certainly, sure. And, well, right, allowed by the town to do just that, and now, the potential at least exists for that to be taken away.
Well, it's
whether
existed
that's
for
fair
the
is-
last 20 years too, though.
Mhm.
So everything that you just said has existed for the last 20 years.
Mhm.
And the only reason we're sitting here is because somebody asked to go off of it,
That's
off
right.
of town property onto
Mhm.
their lot.
Right.
Which I guess we could have approved just like
Exactly
we
right.
approved 20 years ago.
Mhm.
Well, we didn't. But, I mean, I understand that is over the last 20 years that connecting those two hasn't been something that the town's wanted to do. I guess my eyes look at 20 years from now, is that different?
Right.
Okay, we just talked about land that's up there. You know, I can't predict what's gonna happen in 20 years, that they could wanna connect those two roads for some ungodly reason.
Two issues, and I'm asking because I don't know. So the Greers basically own property across the street from your folks. Is that the way I understand it from you folks? And they want to come in off from Forest Hills, but to get to their property on a different driveway.
They want to come up our driveway.
Right, up there.
Come on.
They wanted to come right
I thought
off.
they want to come on this side of the CMP line.
That's what they're saying now.
Initially, they
Now,
wanted to go off.
Last meeting, they want to come right off the Bayou's driveway.
Jeff, isn't there another paper street off of Forest Hill that comes to the left and also goes up by the Rosens property? I believe there's another paper street.
Well, where the plants are, that was a proposed street as well.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's
that's
another paper street in there.
Yeah,
right.
that is a paper street, but I don't know if there's a connecting
Yeah,
from
not
Forest
quite
Hill.
sure. There's a lot of paper streets in.
But the
in
Greers, they're trying to get to their property, which is across the street from you folks, correct?
Mhm.
And you can't get to that from Cedar
From
Street or
theirs.
whatever that is called there, so.
Not easily.
Not easily.
If you can,
Not easily.
I'm pointing here right now to the lot in question, lot 43. This is the Greer property here.
Okay.
It tapers to a narrow point here. And they currently own this property here off the end of Spruce Street,
Spruce Street, that's what I was thinking.
which potentially could access the lot, but not with great ease. It'd be very difficult to try to build a driveway off that because of a huge elevation difference and the narrowness of the lot. So that's why they looked at using Forest Hill, the Bayou driveway, to get to the lot. But now, Mrs. Greer is telling me that she's perfectly satisfied with using the easement that CMP is going to give them off the end of the turnaround on Forest Hill. So I think she's getting away from the idea of an easement from the town.
And what these folks are looking to buy is just their driveway?
That's right.
I mean, there's no other pieces of property, it's just basically the 25-foot strip of
There,
50 feet.
whatever it is.
yeah, that was,
This piece right here?
permission was granted to, when
Who?
Dwayne gave the driveway permit to install that,
We had
At least
no
I assume-
idea-
what's that?
excuse me, we had no idea that property was not part of the estate. The driveway wasn't, and apparently it was on our lawn also.
Does someone own lot 108?
Yes.
Yes, I
There's a
believe
house
that's
there.
Ann Holmes.
And they access that from up top?
Yes, there's a turnaround. It goes past the driveway a little, there's a turnaround right here. So I believe this right here is,
That's Mike Bragdon's, right?
this is the Bragdons, this is Chris McLeod.
Right.
And then Paul's sister's house is the next one, and then McLeod's behind that as
Okay,
well.
is there a house in 42 and 43?
No.
No, these are not developed, I don't believe.
44?
Across,
No,
Bragdon,
no.
no, that's open.
All right.
The next
So,
one up.
right, so that goes back to my original point. The reason this came up is because somebody wants to develop on 43. One way or another, a decision tonight, that's how these things come up, when they're, I'll say it, when they're perhaps not as handled as well as they could have been with hindsight. And so now, this just has the issue, the potential to come up again 6 months from now, or a year from now, or 18 months from now. I think the bigger question here is two things. Is the town ever interested in these two streets, Woodland Heights and Forest Hills, ever being connected? which is the bigger concern by a smidge, just because it would infect a majority of the town, or a good portion of the town. But B, a recognition that the Bayous have maintained this portion of the property with the town's blessing for the better part of 20 years, have paved it, and it's their access to the property. I think it's time to put this to bed. I think it's time, if the town is interested, to sell this piece of property to the Bayous and call this whole question about whether these two streets are going to be connected, which has been a topic of conversation in town off and on for the better part of 20 years, to end it. But
And this came to light just so because this other person wanted to build off their property, so they started looking at it and
Off this road,
realized it
off
was-
this
right,
driveway,
right.
yeah.
But realized then it wasn't, it was town property, and this is where we kinda got to this, so
That's
everybody,
how we found
everybody wants to try to make it right.
yep.
here.
So us selling this strip of pavement, does it prevent someone going into 42?
Not 42, but that other lot, if another person owned it, they would still have a right to get to it. We can't take
Right.
away that right.
I guess that's my issue, is us selling this, we're preventing people from developing in that area.
But I don't know that we can do it, because you can't, somebody's got an easement to get there.
Right.
We can't negate that easement.
Us selling it would negate it.
I don't think it would. Because it's, it's on a plan, and it's in their deed, that they have a right
Yeah.
to come to it from the top.
I mean,
That's the only concern.
that's why, I mean, I guess and I understand, the Bay's dilemma. I don't want us to see us close those lots down. I guess right now we're not sure who owns the strip that it goes across, right? CMP or somebody.
Well, that's the
The deed that I can show you if you want to see it, it describes the strip of land beginning at the northerly corner of Lot 103, which is on south of the power line, and extends about 400 feet or so to where I've shown it, the top end of the yellow part, goes over 50 feet and back down to the northerly corner of Lot 106. So the deed includes that strip over the CMP.
So you think CMP just owns to the west of it?
It could be. It could be. That hasn't been ironed out yet, but I think that could be exactly what's happening. Yeah.
But
The
it-
trails are to the right of it.
Right, so that might, hopefully we put them on our land.
Put them on our, right. Right.
But in terms of this issue, though, if somebody wanted to extend Woodland Heights further past where it is now, anybody would still have access to lots 43 as well as 42. That road could terminate within a certain amount of feet from right up to where the Bayous presently own, and nobody is closed off from any of those lots unless I'm
Well,
seeing
the
this
Annabelle lot, the one that says Annabelle
Yep,
Robbins,
that
that lot, if it's sold and somebody wanted access, they'd still have a deeded
they'd
access
have a
to it.
deeded access to that. Yep.
Right.
So I don't know if we can, that's a good question for an attorney, can you sell off a parcel that has,
Deeded access from where?
does Annabelle Robbins have access coming down?
No, because that's the whole thing about this lot. This lot is not a subdivision lot. It's a hudball lot that was left over. So it wasn't an approved subdivision lot, so they do not have the right, according to our town attorney.
But you can't have a lot without access. I just
Yeah.
worry we're gonna kick the can down the road and then,
But if
But
it's town-owned property that we can give an easement to, they could actually have access to that lot, whether it's a subdivision lot or not. If the town owns that right-of-way up through, they could grant the Annabelle lot
right
a
away from the
right-of-way
other
from
side.
Right, that was the original request from the Greers.
Oh, is that the Annabelle lot that we're talking about?
Yeah.
That is Greer's.
Yeah.
Oh.
So if that gains access across the power line, then the access question for the lot without any access is answered.
True.
I mean, that ends the discussion. All those other lots that are there have access across the yellow area that still remains. The Annabelle lot would be accessed across the power line and nobody else would be harmed. No other lot would be harmed by deeding this to the Bayous, because access would be preserved for every other lot that's there. Yes.
When, what's her name, Mrs. Greer, I guess it is, she came out to the Bayou house about a week ago and did a physical look at what she had originally planned on doing. And
I'm just looking at the tax maps real quick. Below 43, we switched to map 31, which are two solid, there is no 44. It doesn't go beyond that. I mean, 25 and 24 are full lots between Spruce and Woodland Heights. There's no,
I think those are subdivision.
not according to our tax maps, they're solid pieces of,
Well, these lots here with the dashed lines, those are actually approved subdivision lots.
but
that
it's
have
one,
been-
but it's one lot.
They've been combined for tax purposes into one lot.
Right.
But they could theoretically be developed individually because they're approved
But
subdivision.
they also have access off Spruce Street from those.
Yeah.
So I think it's a mute point of trying to worry about where the folks are gonna come to those.
They do, they have access
Absolutely.
through the backside.
Absolutely, they're all connected to Spruce Street when you look at it, so there's no, the access point is really only for 43, that triangle lot, that
Yeah.
is on the other side, right?
Yeah.
That they were answering by
Right.
going across the
Right,
power line.
right.
Yep.
But I think those other lots that you guys are talking about is a mute point, because they can get to those off Spruce Street.
I understand we have a good number of the council here, but is there a recommendation for the council?
My thought is if the Greer person is gonna be able to take and get to their, whether it's through CMP or the easement, whatever the case is, and after a 20-year history of having, a parcel in place with no thoughts, from a dozen councils thinking about extending these, plus there's not a whole lot of public persuasion to try to connect these two roads. I think history in itself is gonna speak for us to do the right thing on this.
Mhm.
So.
I'm good with it.
I mean, everybody's here. You guys got anything to say, or?
I'm good with it. Yeah, I agree with that.
So,
I mean, my main concern with those other two lots,
It's a valid one.
I mean, that's, if they got access, that was my concern.
If they ever do, if it is a subdivision, they actually turn into that, then, they could come up from Spruce Street or the upper end of Woodland Heights for the bottom one. It's not like they're not landlocked.
so Jeff, would the process be that the town refer this to the planning board for an amendment to this subdivision to allow the sale of that, or who would be the initiating party with the planning board for the amendment of this subdivision?
Well, I believe it would need to be either the town or a lot owner in the subdivision.
Does it require approval of everybody in the subdivision?
Everybody in the subdivision will be notified of the amendment, but approval is not required. No.
Because I think that, I'm trying to not get the cart before the horse. Should this go to the planning board before the council deeds something to somebody?
Yeah, I would suggest, yes, very much so, that the planning board should approve the change before.
And then
Yeah.
go through the process of deeding it to the Bayous?
Yes.
So, will the council need to approve that referral, or will we, got it, okay.
You'd approve it, and refer it to the planning board for a subdivision amendment, and then.
With the
once that-
understanding that the council has basically given the blessing of the
That's right.
project,
Yeah.
Sue, can we just clarify something? I thought the code officer said that this was not part of the subdivision.
No, he said the Annabelle Robbins was not part of
The
it.
Greer lot.
Lot 43.
But just 43, not,
This lot, this triangular shaped lot here, that
Yeah.
one is not a subdivision lot.
okay. But where the power lines are and where CMP is, you're saying that is part of the subdivision? I
No.
thought we said earlier that wasn't.
No.
This runs right through that, so how is that part of the subdivision?
It's the strip of land that was approved by the planning board for the Woodland Heights subdivision to connect Woodland Heights to Forest Hill.
So it's part of the
So
Woodland
it's
Heights
Part of
subdivision.
Woodland Heights,
Yes.
but not
Not
Forest
Forest
Hill.
Hills.
Right, but the plan that was approved required that Woodland Heights be connected to Forest Hill. And that's still in place. That plan is still exactly the same.
Right, but this is part of Woodland Heights, not Forest Hills.
What is part?
The law we're
The
talking
blue
about.
piece.
Is it? No, it's part of Forest Hill.
Well, I mean, yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, it's access view.
yeah, it's access via Forest Hill.
if those streets ever were to be connected, they probably would need to have just one street name.
Yeah.
Right, but part of the subdivision plan had those 107, 108 was part of the Woodland Heights subdivision plan,
Yes, these are Woodland Heights subdivision lots.
Correct.
Yeah.
not Forest Hills, with the assumption that the roads would be
Forest
connected.
Hill is an older subdivision.
Okay.
Forest
Okay,
Hills was
whichever one
before
that
Woodland
needs
Heights?
amendment is the one that
Yes, my house
They
was
go
built
down,
in the
yeah.
nineties.
we refer to.
Okay.
Yeah, way along
Okay.
the Red Hill Road.
Any other questions or concerns on that?
So for the values, what the council will, not on tonight's agenda, it's not on tonight's agenda, but will, it's gonna go from committee to the planning board for them to, with a request to amend the subdivision, so that the council can formally, transfer that.
Anything else on item 5? Very good, thank you.
Do we have to do anything with 5A?
That's the Greers.
That's that, the one.
And
That is an old
That's-
part.
that was, the A was the Greers that he talked about first, that she came
So
in
is it all
today, and
set?
that's settled, yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
Let's see. Item 6 is the public safety building. We have 2 things there. The first being garage door sensors, second being bay heaters.
Captain Connors is here. The safety committee, in doing our building inspections, our garage door base sensors don't work. And that's a risk. As explained in the thing, it's further complicated by the fact that all of our vehicles in the fire side have a regular sensor won't see the body soon enough because it's higher than most, and so the proposal is for a different kind of sensor system that will protect people and property from inadvertently hitting a door that didn't respond when they thought it was going to respond. Am I close to that?
Or a door coming down or anything.
Yeah.
What's the height on those again, like 42 inches, was it, or?
They're 36-inch sensors.
My fear with that is if we have some young child,
It starts at 6.
it starts at 6.
It's set at 6 inches and goes 36
Okay.
inches up.
I didn't understand that, so thank you. 'Cause I thought it was just gonna start at 36.
No,
Yeah, yeah.
no, so if we go with the standard sensor eyes, those have to be at 6 inches. You
Right.
have to have something at that 6-inch height.
All right. I was understanding we couldn't go with those, so we had to go with 36, but you're saying we're gonna incorporate both.
Between.
So we're going with, so the sensors themselves are literally, it's a curtain that starts, it's a laser sensor or a beam sensor that's 36 inches long. And that will start at 6 inches and go up 3 feet. So it'll be 3.5 feet from the floor will be covered.
Nice.
Is that on the police doors too, or?
Yes, that's all
Yeah,
7.
we don't have anything there now.
That's all 7 garage doors.
Oh, you have nothing on your
There's
side?
no eyes, and we've had people get hit by the doors, and we shouldn't have eyes for sure.
But that covers all our doors.
Yes, all
Yes,
7.
that's all 7.
Awesome.
Questions? Public? Council?
Yeah, you got-
Great idea.
Oh, Jim.
When them doors come down, they have a sensor and it stops them from, if it hits something, it stops them. What weight are those set at?
Couldn't answer that.
Go ahead.
I don't know.
There's regulations that them have to, then they would you toe underneath and you put an egg under them, they won't break it. If they're set right. Those sensors at 6 inches off the floor are stop anything from coming in. If you put a second sensor at 36 or 42 or whatever height, you're gonna get the same thing as these $3,000 curtains. Just an extra set of sensor eyes.
So, anticipating that, Overhead Door came in and gave us a bid for 2 sets of sensors. To set them at a separate height, came in at $3,800 versus the $3,000. 2,000 just for these. So, we did have the other option. We did look at the other option as well.
What's the wish of the committee?
Move forward.
All right, all's in favor? Take that to the council. And the bay heaters.
We had looked at this before. There was a suggestion about just rebuilding the motor on them rather than doing the heater. We asked to have them evaluated for whether or not that was the best method, only because these are original to the building, and that simply changing out the motor may not result in
Efficiency.
well, that amongst other things, Captain Connor can explain better. But what it did, this evaluation did do, which was very important, is that it better fine-tune and reduce the cost of the project by several $1,000s in terms of the type of heater that should be installed and what should, but the question, because the question was whether rebuilding the motors and putting them back in was, and that was from the evaluation, Captain Connor can explain better, but not seen to be the most cost-effective way to, that wouldn't address the other pieces of the equipment that could.
The other pieces that were already, they're still, any way you look at it, those units are old, 50 years old. So we could search and find some place that had a properly sized motor to match those and fit those. So you'd have a new motor and an old radiator per se. There's no guarantees for that. There's no guarantees for new ones either. But at the same time, they rough estimated somewhere around 6,000 to replace motors, and it's a lot. It just seems easier project-wise just to replace them at this point. At 50 years, they serve their usefulness. The other thing that we discovered in that as well, the prices, the quotes that came back. I went through ABM Mechanical, who's done work for us on our furnace and our other heating elements, motors, circulators and such, and RH Foster. Both of them came in with units that were size-wise matched the current units that are there. The company that makes the units that we have now is no longer in business. Moline seems to be the only place that has anything similar, but they were larger units than were previously quoted as well. So the price came in at less with units that are actually matching what's there, which were larger than the previous quote.
Isn't RH Foster's cheaper?
So if you look at RH Foster's, it comes in, I think it's about $1,000 less. As I explained in my letter, RH Foster's quote doesn't include the possibility of having to replace the isolation valves on those units. Again, the whole system, that whole system is 50 years old. The valves that are going to those are 50 years old. We haven't had to isolate them, we haven't had to turn those. Chances are they're probably okay, but at the same time, they may not be. If they have to replace them, then that would be an additional cost to RH Foster's quote. I contacted them for a price on that, and their answer was, well, we shouldn't have to replace them, why are you asking for that? I asked for it anyway, and I still haven't seen it. ABM actually thought ahead, and they included that. So that additional price difference is for those valves. If they don't have to replace them, then that won't be charged to us. We won't have to pay that amount.
It will be the $10,350.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I'd rather be prepared than to have to come back and say, hey, we came in at an extra $1,000 because they ran into that problem.
Sounds like it's been moved, do we have to vote on that?
Yes.
Yeah, it's been moved and seconded, to approve as submitted, all those in favor? Very good.
Motion adjourned.
Got one more.
We got
We
one
got
more.
one more.
It was a good try. Zero sort conversion.
We currently have a contract with Casella Waste out of Lewiston for zero sort recycling. We pay $145 a ton to dispose of our recyclables. With the opening of Fiberite, they also offer a zero sort, and it would require no change in our equipment or our vendor, because Casella is delivering to Fiberite for zero sort now, so it doesn't require a change. The change that would result is that as part of zero sort, the Fiberite process does not include glass or 3 through 7 plastic, which there's not a market for at this point. That would go into the waste. But the waste at the Fiberite process, the waste itself is converted into usable products, not landfilled or burned. So the pelletized fuel and other things will use those 3 to 7 plastic, but it goes in through the trash as opposed to recyclables. And the cost per ton with Fiberite is $35 a ton. So we would save $110 a ton, still be doing zero sort for the majority of what we do, and the products that go from zero sort into trash, that being glass and 3 to 7 plastic, still have a better end life in terms of reuse than if they were to be landfilled or otherwise, because the difficulty right now is that the recycling markets, with the end of the just let's export it all to China and let them sort it and dispose of the rest, is caused a real crunch here. This process through Fiberite is one of the few that is actually finding a marketable ability for these products. So my question is whether you wish to continue sending it to Lewiston for $145 a ton, or if you wish to send it to Hamden for $35 a ton.
So moved.
And just so everybody understands, the stuff that's not being recycled is being hauled away at $70 a ton.
That's actually $65. We get a $5 rebate on every ton, so it's $65.
So our total cost for tonnage would be $100 compared to even the $145. I mean, we're not going to spend any more than $100 a ton for all of our.
No, we're currently paying a net $65 a ton for our solid waste, and right now we're paying $145 a ton for recyclables. So a combined tonnage cost of $205. If we convert to Fiberite, it's 65 plus 35, it's 100.
It
So
allows us to recycle.
and you're still doing zero sort in the same way that we have. The only, as I said, the only articles that need to come out are glass and 3 through 7 plastics, which will be utilized in other processes, but
And is
through
that
the waste
separated
side.
at our place, or is that separated up there?
The glass and 3 to 7 will now go in the hopper, and everything else just stays going into the zero sort like it does now. And there's a period of time over which they're allowing communities to adjust to this, so that people in the community can become educated on what goes where. But with the idea that the glass and the 3 through 7 plastic in the Fiberite waste stream for processing result in usable product as opposed to landfilled or incinerated.
And second, questions from the public? Bruce?
Yeah, is there gonna be any problem that there's any contamination in the stuff that you send out?
In contamination, well,
Contamination.
contamination that's a great question. Contamination is one of the biggest problems with, and it's why the things that are coming up, contamination is stuff in it that they don't have a market for. And
Right.
that's the plastics and the glass currently.
If, say, we put cardboard in there and they found something spilled on it or something, or it
Well,
gets wet, is it gonna be, are we gonna be paying for it?
Well, the monitoring what goes in will be our responsibility. As I said, they're allowing an integration period where communities get everybody moving in the same directions on this stuff. But much of the contamination has been in the zero sort part is that all sorts of things that really weren't supposed to be recycled in the first place got put into that. We haven't experienced that. We haven't had any feedback from Lewiston that our loads were
And just
totally
to answer
contaminated.
that, because I remember reading this, the worst case scenario is going to be a 10%. If more than 10% of your stuff is contaminated, they'll give us a warning a couple times. If it continues, then they're going to charge us at that $65 rate for the whole thing. It won't be,
That's what I want.
yeah,
Because there's a lot of places that's kind of an excuse
Cor-
that they can dig you right
correct.
along.
And the most they're going to charge is their regular rate. But if it's more than 10%, they'll give us a couple warnings. We'll try to straighten it out. But the most that they say they're going to charge us is our
Now,
regular.
do we have to guarantee them a certain amount or?
Any questions from the public?
I do. I rent, and I have a dumpster, and they come and pick it up. Does that go into 5 or 8?
Your dumpster,
Yeah, dumpster.
it all depends what contract your company has to, for,
I don't have any contract with them. We have dumpsters around town, and where are the dumpsters going?
well, that, again, who picks them up for you?
Okay, so it's separate from what,
Yes,
where we get up.
yes.
Yes.
Anything else? It's moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Very good.
Go ahead.
Motion adjourned.
Second.
Moved and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor? Thank you.
Nice time.